Hi, I'm Amanda Jane, and welcome to the Communicate with Confidence podcast. My aim is to take the fear out of communicating and make it easy and fun. On this podcast, I'm going to be talking about everything to do with good communication, how we can connect with our audience, get better at speaking and giving presentations, increase visibility, and ultimately get more sales. I'll also be talking to some incredible people about their business, and I'll be getting their insights on how they view communication and how comfortable they are showing up in person and on social media. So let's get started. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Communicate with Confidence podcast. I'm your host Amanda Jane, and today I have with me a very special guest, a self-defense expert called Carrie Conrad. Hi Carrie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me, and I'm really looking forward to this because you have a really interesting business. So I'm going to be asking loads of really probing questions if you're up for that. But before
Bring
we
it.
do, I have my three usual questions. So, do you or have you thought about a motivational song?
I really feel that every person needs to have a motivational song, and I don't. I was thinking about it. It's just music is something that just brings so much joy, motivation, freedom, like even coping, processing. And I am surrounded with people who love and live and breathe music, and I'm just not one of them. And I think that it takes what it takes, like everybody's got to be who they're supposed to be to do the things that they're supposed to do. And maybe that's just part of the deal.
Yeah, not everyone needs it. So, no, that's absolutely fine. What about a quote then? Do you have a quote or maybe not?
I do, but I don't know if you want me to paraphrase it because it's this long quote from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, and it just has to do with the power that each person has, and it talks about controlling the weather and how I'm the decisive element, and that every interaction that I come into, I have the power to build people up, or I have the power to make things less ideal. And so I just really appreciate that because there's so much in life that you just can't control.
Yeah,
There's just things you can't do anything about.
yeah.
However, I have influence in every moment of every day. There's something influential.
Yeah, that's so true. And the only thing that you can control is your reaction to those things, not the external. No, that's so interesting. And this is a nosy question of mine. Do you read?
I do. Yes.
And have you got a favorite book? Doesn't have to be motivational.
Um, I have books that I want to read like on an annual basis because they are motivational. One of which is called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And another one is Crucial Conversations. That is, I just can't believe there's so much that I know about communication, de-escalation, negotiation, and that book is in layman's terms and it's for anybody and everybody. Usually when I read books like that, I'm like, oh, that's great as long as you don't have to worry about somebody being aggressive or violent. But this book, it's just layman's terms and it's communication for every scenario. I just think that's like we talked about before recording. Communication is a skill that every person can benefit from improving. And that's just like the foundation to really look at what I bring to the table.
And given what you do for a living, that really interests me. And I'm definitely going to read that because I imagine you've been
So
in some
good.
interesting negotiation situations. So tell us a little bit about what you do, your background, and your business at the moment.
I help women and children be and feel safe in their lives and their relationships, specifically online. I empower moms to tap into their inner mama bear so that they can confidently keep their kids safe. The world today is just what it is. Like, talk about things you can't control. There's just things that I have learned I'm not going to fix. I just can't. And it's like, well, no matter what's going on in the world and what the world looks like, there are things that I can do to be safe.
Mhm.
So that's where I invest my time is helping people like really look at what there's like this idea of safety and then there's this actual safety. So you have like your emotional security and then you have your actual physical safety. And we can feel unsafe and be safe. and we can feel safe and be in danger. So it's about asking the right questions to making sure that we have both.
And what brought you to that role? What experience? What did you do previously to bring you to that business?
It was life, I guess. My parents forced me into martial arts when I was a kid. It was like this terrible death sentence. I was told I couldn't date unless I had a black belt. So I got a black belt in
Wow.
record time. Um, uh, and then what happened is even though, and it's like there's people who show up to martial arts and they earn belts because they've been there long enough or because they've invested enough money. That's not the kind of art that I did. The kind of art that I participated in is like you either earn it or you don't earn it. There's there's no grace, you know what I mean? Like either you earned it or you're not there yet. And despite being really good, I found out that it turns out I'm pretty good at martial arts. Despite doing that and competing and being well known and all of this stuff, I was still victimized, like in multiple different ways at different times in my life. And there's just like a special kind of shame in being told that it would never happen to me. And it's like, but how did it happen? And I just, that's what led to the journey. That's what led to me. I want to say like starting off on a leg up than many people. Because most people, when they have a traumatic, situation, they're like, oh, I'm going to go take boxing or I'm going to go take karate. And they think that's the solution. And it's like, yeah, I was breathing the solution and was still victimized. So there's something missing there. And the journey was finding out like
Mhm.
how and why, like how could that happen to me? And it's not like it was a one-time deal. It was like in different ways at different times of my life. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
How? And today I know how. And that's what I make sure that people are empowered.
Yeah.
That's why I'm talking about the difference of like being safe and feeling safe. People think they're prepared and then they find out, oh, they're not really as equipped as they think they are. Everybody thinks they can handle a situation or they know that they can't. But of the people who think that they can, most often with just a few questions, you'll find out that it's just that's how the brain works. You can't just run around saying, oh, I'm at risk of everybody and everything. Like you wouldn't be able to function.
And unfortunately, some people do, don't they? They live in fear. And you see these horrors on the television, and none of us are immune to that fear. And I also wonder then, if you do take precautions and you do go to the classes and you do your best, maybe you have that little built-in immunity and you think, I've taken control, I've learned this thing, I can protect myself. And maybe you have that false sense of security because you think, well, I've taken control of my safety now. I'm okay. And it's just really interesting to hear someone like you, because I've read your backstory, to say that actually that's not the case. And it's not the case in one scenario, it's multiple scenarios, and it's a journey. It's not just a one scenario and that's it. It's just constant vigilance. You talk about women and children, and making them feel empowered and safe. So in terms of leadership, how do you do that? How do you make women and children feel safe?
I help people get honest with themselves because we are programmed to rationalize and justify and deny. And, like if you're uncomfortable with somebody or something, people go, oh, don't be so rude. Like people will talk you out of it. I listen to people do it all the time. I don't know what it's like where you grew up or where you live now, but in the United States, we're constantly telling our children they don't feel the way that they do.
Mhm.
It's just the norm. When your child says that they're sad or upset, they're like, oh no, and they try and like insert happy feeling here. And we're just programming our children to deny their feelings. But the thing is when it comes to violence and prevention, like we have those instincts. They are built in. It's in there, especially for moms.
Yeah.
I mean, it is there, but like I said, it can be very skewed very easily where we don't trust ourselves, or maybe we've had life experiences that aren't so good, so we doubt everybody and we're concerned about everyone. Well, I promise to you, everyone is not unsafe. Every stranger is not a problem. There are some people who are not safe, but if we're worried about everybody, we're not going to be able to notice them.
It's really interesting. And in Ireland, I was taught in a convent, and it was an all girls school, and I remember feeling that I had to be on high alert for everything. But the strangest thing, when I had my own children in Ireland, there was this tradition. I don't know about the States. I can just talk about my own experiences where I grew up. But every Christmas, they would take you to see Santa Claus, and you would sit on his lap and you would get your photograph taken. I never did that with my children. I couldn't bear the thought of letting them sit on a stranger's knee and force them to have the photograph taken. And I've seen photographs of other families, and you know, I'm not judging it. That's nice if you want to do that. And some of the children are crying, or they're shocked, or they're horrified. And I just, you know, you talked about the mama bear. I was probably that mama bear because I was hyper vigilant. I was just like this all the time. But that was just one example where I just couldn't do that. Something that everyone else did, but I couldn't do that. I just couldn't bring my children to Santa. And we used to go, and I'd say, "Oh, that's Santa," you know, and I just pointed him out. We didn't join the queue. And it was just an instinctive thing in me. I just didn't want to do it. But I didn't know anyone
Yeah.
else that didn't want to do it. And it was just so strange.
Yeah, I hear you. You know what's crazy though is like, so I help moms raise their kids to trust their own gut instincts. And so what happens is would you believe, because I won't force my kids to do Santa Claus either, but would you believe that 3 out of 3 of my kids happily went and sat on Santa's lap and were stoked? And I'm like, what? But I'm confident that my children have been raised to assess how they feel around other people.
Yeah.
So they choose. I have one of my daughters. I have 3 daughters, so they're all daughters. And let me tell you, if that's not motivation to learn how to keep kids safe, I don't know what
Yes,
is.
I have two
Um,
daughters.
the oldest one, though, she is the friendliest little thing you have ever met. And I really wondered because I taught her everything that I know. And I just thought, yeah, but I don't even know that she would care, or, you know what I mean? Because she's just so friendly with everybody. But no, I have seen her over the years. There, every now and then, there's somebody, and we have a safety plan, and she absolutely uses that safety plan. And it's crazy. It's crazy that these kids, you raise them to trust themselves, and they show you. Because the thing is like, what I think, I know what's safe for me. My alarm bells go off when someone is unsafe for me, but that doesn't mean I know who is unsafe for other people, because they have their own alarm bells, right? So I want to make sure that if my children tell me that they don't feel comfortable with somebody and I don't see what their problem is, I need to understand that they are programmed to save their own lives. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, like I still have the mama bear, but it's just really important to listen to other people. Just because you don't understand or agree, it doesn't mean that it's not legit.
Mhm. And you're right, not to dismiss feelings from young people, young children, or other people. And I think we are programmed to do that. Oh, don't be silly, it's fine. Oh, that's such and such, it's fine. And I strongly believe in your instincts, even from children, because they still have their own, even if they can't articulate that instinct. And it is there to keep you safe. And I do think you're right. We as society, we do that. We dismiss it so quickly. Oh, it's just a joke. Oh, it's funny, it's this, it's that. But it's so interesting that you've instilled that in your children, that they can express it with you, and that they're in tune with their feelings, and they have that self-awareness that
Yeah.
it's there, and it's their safety valve, if you like, to keep them safe.
People notice it and they compliment it all the time. They're just blown away. People are just blown because it's not normal. It's not normal to raise kids to trust themselves, which is like, what does that tell you? What does that tell you about society? But so I spend a lot of time doing that with people, but I also train in like the actual defense and creating safety plans and getting in and out of the car and like all of those areas of concerns. I help like moms raise those kids with that safety plan and integrate them into their everyday life.
And it's so important because, you know, you have this feeling, oh, I'll be fine, oh, I'll be fine. And sometimes you won't be fine, and sometimes you won't quite know what to do. But in that moment where you're not fine, that little piece of something that you learned, that little piece of, because I've had some hairy moments in my life, and it was pure instinct that made me survive. And it was just a
Yeah.
quick thought of getting away, running away or whatever. And, it was pure instinct that saved my life on a few occasions. But I think we need to normalize being safe and being aware of our own safety, and just building that into our lives, so it's normal, you're right, so that everybody, it just becomes part of, rather than it being a sport. It's just something that we do, because that's
Yeah.
it, isn't it? Oh, it's a sport,
Yeah.
we do that. But let's learn to keep our children safe, and let them take some responsibility for keeping themselves safe, because we can't be with them 24 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah, but the reality is, and if anybody knows, it's me, making safe choices is not cool. It sounds cool. Everybody thinks everybody should do it, but nobody wants to take responsibility to do it themselves. And if you're that person in a group that says, hey, we're gonna bow out, we're not doing this, people are like not thrilled.
I
Because
think,
you don't have proof. You don't have
yeah,
proof. You're like, what's your problem? You're like, this, I'm not just not comfortable and we're just not going. And people are like, how could you? And you paid for these tickets. And it's like, yeah, I choose safety over money.
yeah,
Not popular
yeah,
comment. I promise you, it is not. And that's why I feel, and you talked about leadership. That's why I feel I've always felt obligated to do this. Because if I'm not doing it, who's gonna do it?
yeah,
This industry is unregulated
yeah,
and it's male driven. And while that's great, and there are a lot of men who bring a lot to the table, I don't know a man who is afraid of walking to his car with his groceries.
yeah, yeah,
It's just different. Again, and a huge differentiation is when you say self-defense to a man, they want to back up their mouth at a bar. You know what I mean? You say self-defense to a woman, and again, we're back to groceries.
yeah,
We're back to getting in the car. It's not the same.
yeah.
Not the same. They're talking about like, hey, when somebody pulls a knife on you, how about when I'm pursued, when I have a pursuer who won't stop stalking, you know? Like we're talking, these are different.
Mm.
We're talking about children being groomed. There's no punching and kicking going on.
Yeah,
There's no weapons. We need to have skills.
yeah. I remember when my children wanted to go on the internet, and
Mm,
as a responsible parent, I thought to myself, I didn't want them to go on the internet, but I knew they were going to, and I knew they would throughout their lives. So I thought, I need to teach them how to use it well. I need to teach them how to use it wisely. And they were only using, at the time, I don't want to say what, but it was a popular space for children. And I told them, I gave them 3 questions, and I said, if anyone asks you one of these 3 questions, you come and you tell me. And I knew they were questions that would cause alarm in me. And I said, if anyone asks you, you come and tell me. And they were asked those questions. And then I knew immediately that they were unsafe. And that's the attitude that I've taken with my children. Rather than terrify them,
yeah, good
I
for
gave
you.
them their own red flags,
Yeah,
and said, if you're asked this, or if this happens. And I remember sitting down with them when they were sort of 7, 8, 9, 10, and we talked about photos. Never send photographs because of inappropriate photographs, because that's what worries me at the moment, because one photograph is there forever. And I remember those
yeah,
educational videos, and I spent a long time when my girls were little teaching them about the dangers, age appropriately, letting them know what could happen without going down the dark rabbit hole, because I didn't need to do that. But I did my utmost, because that was kind of my job as well. I was working in that arena, and I just felt it was my responsibility to teach them that it wasn't as safe, because I viewed the internet as a complete stranger standing in their bedroom. And I thought I needed to educate them to the very best of my ability, so they had the tools to use it well, rather than take it from them, because I knew I made it desirable. The minute I took it away, it was
yeah,
it was crazy. Like a drug, I have to have this. But when they were children, those 3 questions they were asked, and then they immediately would come and tell me, Mommy, someone's asking me these questions, and then I was able to take them off. But you're talking about the physical space, and the internet space, and men do have a different set of unsafe circumstances, but women, it is normal circumstances. It's the, you say, the groceries, or doing normal everyday life, or the subtle stalking that no one's taken seriously.
Yeah.
And
Well, we usually have to choose between our safety and either our paycheck, our living situation, our degree, our job. I mean, like it's not like it's just what it is. Again, it's not like bad things don't happen from complete strangers, because that does happen, but for women and children, more often, it's from people that we know. That's why communication is so important, so that you can communicate with somebody to help weed out, like you said, when you're looking for those 3 questions, when those pop up, you're like, all right, we're tapping out. It's time to go. Same thing with communication, like in person. And we do cover online safety too.
somehow I must have picked the right 3 questions. I don't know, but just a little, just something that worked for me, and I'm grateful that I had the presence of mind to be so vigilant and do it. So, in with what you do then, did you have any inspiration along the way? Was there anyone individual, or any doesn't have to be famous? Was there anyone that inspired you in any of your career moves?
Well, when you phrase the question like that, I can tell you that it is terrible experiences in this world, in like the self-defense world, that has inspired me to do better. Because I figure if these are really big names and they're taking really good money to do what they do, and I can do better without even meaning to, or it's like, I really feel it would be irresponsible and immoral for me not to contribute to this space. I don't know anyone else who does what I do. I don't.
No, I haven't come across any, and not that I've met everyone in the world, but your experience and what you offer is very unique, and I haven't seen it. And it is just so interesting that the scope that you have to expand and to educate more women and possibly more people like yourself is huge, because just from this 10-minute conversation, look at the gaps.
Yeah.
And it's clear that the more education's needed, and more pioneers almost to bring that awareness. And yeah, I just think it's so interesting, and that I haven't seen anyone like you in the online space offering what it is that you do. So do you show up on social media? Do you have a web presence? How do you communicate with your audience? How do you sell yourself, or how do you promote yourself?
I have a website, I have a Facebook group. I'm moving on to Instagram. That's where I'm supposed to be. But generally, I just really appreciate and enjoy showing up. I go to conferences and speak on specific things. Like, I don't know how it is where you are, but in the United States, we have a lot of parents struggling with their children's mental health, and moms are needing to know how to keep their other kids safe and keep themselves safe from their own children, because we just don't have helpful help, you know?
Yeah.
So I just do a lot of speaking. I like showing up. I like connecting with people. I like serving, like that. Honestly, I think social media is just something else. So I like to speak in private spaces where I can connect with people.
Yeah, that's interesting. And most of my guests, they're on social media, and I can imagine with what you do, speaking at conferences and in sort of more intimate gatherings is more effective for you. And the stories that you've got to tell, or the stories that you've got to listen to, would probably be a lot, well, it wouldn't fit on social media. It's probably something. You talked about mental health there. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to protect the family that's suffering from it, and offer them support moving forward, because it does get overlooked. I think the support just isn't there. And that's not even venturing down the path of the safety element, from the external safety element. So do you travel around to talk at conferences, or do you tend to stay in Detroit, or are you happy to kind of travel for those?
Oh, I'm happy to travel.
Yeah.
I intentionally do this because I enjoy traveling. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So what would the conferences be? Would they be specifically safety conferences, or would they be under the umbrella of something else?
Usually women's empowerment. I have a signature talk that's called Recovering from Victimhood. And then other than that, usually like parenting conferences.
No, it sounds really interesting. So Where would we find more about you online? So do you have anything on your website of you talking? Could I go and watch one of your talks?
So if you go to beatingdisaster.com, there's a special section for Mama Bear Prepared. That's all the online content. If you click on that and sign up for emails, there will be podcasts sent to your email. Then that's included in the freebies and stuff that we share to empower moms.
Well, I will put all of those links in the show notes for the podcast. And before we finish, what legacy would you like to leave? What would you like to be remembered for?
I started out training kids and, children and women, and then I figured I can reach more people by training moms. And now I'm starting to include also training instructors so that because there's so many women out there who are in this self-defense space, but they don't have the experience or the background or the knowledge that I do. And honestly, again, I don't know what the industry is like on your side of the world, but here it is not friendly. Like everybody's willing to take your money to train women, but then once you're certified, it's a bit much. So I want to train self-defense instructors, male or female, it doesn't matter, but just so they're able to serve women and children. Then that's how I want everybody to know that they are not stuck in an unsafe situation, even if domestic violence, right? Like sometimes we choose unsafe situations because it's the best choice that we have. That's what I want to leave, is just people with more choices. The more choices we have, the less stuck we are in just harm and hurt.
I'm just trying to think of where I live, for example. I don't ever recall seeing anything about self-defense and keeping yourself safe. What I have seen is support for women via Women's Aid, which I've seen a lot of, which is, I don't know if you know that organization. And one of the things that I do in my business, I focus on visibility and helping women, mainly women, grow their business and other business owners. And visibility means different things to different people. So a lot of people choose to be faceless. So they want to have a business, but they don't want to show their face. It's audio or images. And recently I've had discussions with people who choose not to be visible for reasons that we've talked about, for safety reasons, because
Yep.
there's an ex-partner or they're working under fear, but they still need to earn a living. And that's one of the things that I'm looking at the moment, because I just find that, what do? You've got a business, you need to earn a living, but you can't use your face because you're frightened. And it's part of your business. You know that you need to show up. It's your personality. You've got to be there. And I just find that really, it shocked me, and I just thought, well, what can I do to help? I wanted to create a program whereby if you were in that situation, these are all the visibility methods that are open to you. You can still run your business, you can still show up, and this would be the faceless method. And it's just so interesting that these conversations are crossing my path at the moment. And I don't believe in coincidences.
Yeah.
That's the conversation I'm supposed to have. But it's just really interesting. But I'm going to pay more attention around me at the moment just to see what safety measures for women there are out there if you wanted to go and learn self-defense just where I am in my part of the UK.
I
Um
do know it's not weapons.
yes, it's not weapons. That's a different
Oh,
that's a
do
different.
you know what's fun though? I mean, at least it's fun for me. I might be like way out there, but in a membership that I have, it's an online membership for moms. There are videos on how to use everyday items in self-defense.
Mhm.
Just 5-10 minute videos on just I mean, from your coffee mug to a pen to whatever it is that you carry, your
Yeah,
bag.
yeah.
So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I teach weapons too, but not in England.
Yeah, and that is interesting though, to if you needed to use what you have. And the scrapes that I had when I was younger, all I had was my legs to run away, but it
Yeah.
was it was just pure survival instinct. I was able to run away. But if you got a cup or your handbag, like you say, or even your nails, but that would be interesting. I'll put the links on as well, because even if you pick up one tip, you just don't know that could help you. And if if it helps someone, not going to be good knowledge. It's always going to be useful knowledge to have, and if it helps someone, that's amazing. But thank you so much, Carrie. That has just been so interesting, and I'll put all the links in the show notes. And I could talk to you all night because I know all the wonderful work that you've done behind the
Right.
scenes and the stories that you must have, and the incredible people that you must have met. But you must come on my podcast again. But I'm just mesmerized by your story, and it's fascinating to speak with someone like you. Like I say, haven't met anyone like you before, and I'm just really honored that you came on my podcast. So thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you're doing, and I want to hear more about your faceless visibility because that's very well needed.
Well, watch this space. So thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you for spending time with us today, and special thanks to my amazing guest, Carrie Conrad, for sharing her incredible story with us. If you want to become a confident speaker to improve your sales, don't miss out on my free resources. You can find the links in the podcast notes, as well as the links that Carrie also mentioned in the podcast. Join me on the next episode for more tips, tricks and insights. You can follow me on Instagram at Coach Amanda Jane, or visit my website amandajane.co.uk. Bye for now.